Hey everyone! Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Cassie Riva. I'm the events coordinator at An Unlikely Story. Before we start, I wanted to give you a few technical points. If you have any issues with video or audio quality, click on the help button in the upper right corner of your screen and follow the prompts. Refresh your page, or just leave the presentation and log back in. Any questions for Francine can be written in the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to buy the book, there's a button in the lower middle part of the screen that's going to take you directly to our website. And when you order the Word-A-Day vocabulary book from An Unlikely Story, you're going to receive this very cool signed book plate from Francine. Francine Puckly holds a bachelor's degree in communications and a master's degree in industrial and labor relations from Cornell University. She served as a conference director and assistant regional advisor for the New England chapter of the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators from 2007 to 2019. And she's the co-founder and former blogger for 24caratwriting.com. She has written for newspapers, special interest journals, and college magazines, and she's now working on several young adult fiction manuscripts. Her first book, The Word-A-Day Vocabulary Workbook, is an entertaining blend of 365 obscure words, amusing word trivia, and thought-provoking daily writing prompts. This book is designed to help you build your vocabulary and get your creative juices flowing. One day and one word at a time. She also completed it in just 17 days, which is really cool. Hopefully she tells us more about that. She lives in Massachusetts with her husband, her 2 cats, and has 2 children, one of whom will be joining us tonight, film director and screenwriter Megan Mathieson. Francine and Megan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to bring you guys up on screen. Hi. Thank you for coming. Happy book birthday.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Cassie. I would like to just thank everybody for tuning in tonight. In the ideal world, we would be together, but in some ways, so many more of you can join in tonight by being through the computer and virtual. I want to thank my family, my parents, my brothers, my in-laws, my mother-in-law, my sisters and brother-in-laws for being here tonight, and so many friends from grade school and high school to college and my first career out in Indiana, they've joined in, and all of my writer friends from conference roomies to critique group members to the people who keep me from jumping off the ledge when things go badly, and my accountability partners, all the people who have helped me get here. Thank you for being here. And I'm thrilled to share this with my daughter, Megan Mathieson. She's a recent graduate from NYU, and she's starting her own career in the creative world of film. So she and I have a lot of great conversations around writing and character and plot. And so it's great to be able to share this discussion with her. So I also want to thank, before I turn it over to Megan, Cassie Riva and Kim Havens and the fabulous An Unlikely Story. If you have not been to the bookstore, put it on your bucket list. It's just a great vibe, great place to be. And they have a liquor license, so get your glass of wine while you browse around. So I'll turn it over to Megan. Megan's gonna walk through some questions, and feel free, as Cassie said, to enter questions in at any time. And we'll have a Q&A at the end.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and to celebrate with you. So I guess Cassie started off with a great starting point with the 17-day book. So I guess we can start off by just talking about how this book came to be.
A good friend of mine, who's also a writer, Sharon Conn-Luttrell, she and I had a conversation, I think in April or early May, that I was just looking to kind of break into some different writing. And a friend of hers, Kate Prado, the editor I worked with at Adams Media, was looking for a work for hire. She had the idea, she had the projects, and she was looking for a writer. And so I met Kate via video, and she and I talked. And so the way Work for Hire works is they ask you to submit samples. So we were working on a different book project originally. And so I sent samples in, she would give me feedback, I'd write more. And then on that particular project, they decided to go with an external online resource to do the writing. So then she pitched this one to me and said, what do you think about this one? So again, more samples, more back and forth. And it seemed like it was, you know, I would say that process probably took 5 weeks, writing the samples back and forth. But once she took it to the editorial meeting and we got the green light, she came back and she was like, how fast can you write it? And I thought, oh no. And I didn't think it was going to be 17 days, but it was, when she told me the deadline, I was just like, okay, we better get going. And so I had written 5 of the words. So the other 365 were easy. So,
right.
So yeah, it was, we were hoping to get it in bookstores before the holidays. And so that was why it was such a tight timeline for me to deliver the manuscript. And then with COVID and publishers, you know, the printers, and we didn't quite make it, but we were close.
Wow. That's crazy.
It really was.
Didn't sleep for 17 days.
Yeah, you know, it was intense. I wrote a blog about it. I had 15-hour days as a general rule of thumb. I was up at 5:30 and I worked until 8:30 at night. And then I kind of had a hard stop at 8:30. I'd spend the rest of the night with my husband and then, you know, for an hour, and then I'd go to bed early and start over again. And then the last 3 days, it was around the clock. I was up till 1 in the morning and up at 5. And I know you had called and I wouldn't take the calls. I just wouldn't talk to anybody.
The only time in my life I've tried to call you and you won't pick up. So with how fast a timeline there was for the completion of this book, I can imagine that there was a lot of moving parts. Were there words that were taken out or that you liked, that you researched, that just didn't make the final cut? Or like, what were your favorite words in the book?
Yeah, so as far as the words, Adams Media had already done this, I don't know, 20,000 words, 2,000 words, 20, I can't even remember the number of words, but it was this vocabulary book that they had published years ago. So that was my starting point. I was supposed to use that book as the starting point to find the words. And that book had the word, the definition, and maybe a sample sentence. And the project I had worked on or the samples I had worked on with Kate for the other book idea that she had that we ultimately didn't do, she kind of knew I was leaning towards some humor. And so she kind of gave me the leeway I got to pick the words, and I kind of went after the words in this tomb of words that I thought might have some interesting trivia or might reference a funny movie or a cartoon or, you know, something that when people are reading it, there's something, they're like, oh, I heard that movie, you know, or I heard that word, or, you know, I thought I knew what it meant or what have you. So I went after those first, but then it was such a tight timeline. Like you just couldn't spend too much time researching something. And if it wasn't interesting or the word had nothing that I thought people would look at it and be like, I don't want to read about that word, then I would quickly move on and try to find something else. So, and as it was, my husband, Dean, he ended up doing a lot of he probably took a good 12 to 15 hours of research off my load during that 2.5 week time frame. And so he combed through some that for me and kicked them out. And gave me other stuff to work with. So
It's a right-hand man.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay, so what were 3 words, I don't know, 3 words that you wish, that you loved, that you enjoyed researching, that ended up not getting into the book?
Ended up on the cutting room floor. Well, I used some of them at the start of the year for bonus words because some people were saying, oh, I really wanted to start this on January 1st. So for my Facebook followers and Instagram followers and what have you, I had like 11 bonus words. So I got to use those. And I'm trying to think, like acme. I mean, it's not a hard word, but the fact that the Roadrunner and the Coyote, everything the Coyote ordered was from this Acme corporation. Well, I'm drawing a blank here on words I used this week. Nemesis, but just great. Some of the trivia was just great. From literature and movies, what are some of the great nemesis or what have you?
Right.
I'm not really answering that very well.
No, that's
but
okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, ultimately, so Kate handed the project over to a developmental editor, Peter Archer. And so Peter actually decided that from some of the words I had chosen, he wanted them to be stronger, harder, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually had some revisions there to make, just bump up the level of vocabulary. And I remember when Kate came back to me, she was kind of like, can I get you to like redo like 25 words? And how about 10 days from now? And I'm thinking 10 days to do 25 words?
25.
Like, are you kidding me?
Easy.
Like, I had to do that in 2 hours. Yeah, so I think we ultimately swapped out 40 or 50 of the words that I originally did. By mid-August, those were gone and out, and we had revised.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said that some of the words were too easy for the vocab book, and I know that when you were starting, like when the project first started, you and I talked a lot about it's so important to know like who you're writing a book for before you start writing it. So do you want to talk about ultimately who you decided the target audience for this book was?
Yeah, that was the piece when I first was signed on to the project, and this notion of we were kind of envisioning tough vocabulary words, but humorous trivia, or word nerds would want to know like the backstory of these words. But then there was this writing piece as well, and it took me a couple 3 weeks to in the sampling writing process to kind of get my head around it. And some of my writer friends my writing partners had to listen to me trying to figure out like how does this go together? And ultimately, I think the book is unique because it's got the writing element. So I kind of targeted it in my mind toward people who, yes, they're trying to improve their vocabulary, but they take great joy in using words, whether they're writers or they just journal every day or what have you. So that was kind of how I got.
I feel like what's so special about this book is one of the many things is that it kind of lets the reader play, because it's like all the I don't know, the content with the vocabulary and the definitions and the background, but with the prompts, with the tone that you went for with the book, and then also with the prompts, it's kind of like a fun mixture of educational and also letting people play as they go through the book.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
that's ultimately what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be fun and playful, and thankfully the editor gave me that leeway to do that.
Right. Yeah. So I know that you work on other things that are very different from this book, but I think it seems to me what they all have in common is a lot of research. I know you work on historical novels and fiction novels, and so what I'm curious about, I think research is so important for writing, and I'm curious, how is it different? Like, was your research process different for this book than the other books you're working on?
So in some ways it was very different, and different also definitely because of the time crunch.
Right.
You know, I think when you're writing a novel, you know, you have this luxury to pick 6, 8, 10 books. You know, you can kind of, oh, I think I need to know about this, and I need this, and I need to know about this, and you can read them kind of at your own leisurely pace. And it's very broad. Like for the books fictional books I've written, I'll sweep really broadly on my research. And then as the characters and the plot and the settings start to settle in, then I might go after more specific research. And then I think what's similar on the research process is when you get into those final revisions of a manuscript, then you're going after very specific things. Well, I don't know, what shoe brand would they have worn in 1926? You know, those kind of things. Whereas, and that's the kind of research like
Right.
This was very going deep in quickly, because, and then trying to find the etymology or some usage in literature or film or what have you, and getting really specific to try to drive that information. So it kind of crosses at the end, but I think researching a novel, you know, you have a lot more time.
Right.
Luxury.
I feel like it's hard because you almost, with the research and the facts about these words, it had to be, you had to dig so deeply that it wouldn't be the first thing that comes up when someone looks up the word. And that's what's so great about, I mean, you can totally tell that you really dug into the words in a way that I feel like researching with, for example, a period piece with a novel, I know at least when I read a novel, I'm not fact checking every little thing that I read that the author puts in, but I feel like it's much harder because these are words that people have heard and, you know, they might have looked up themselves. So it's really interesting to know. Yeah. So now that this book is released, what's your upcoming projects? What are you working on now?
Well, I'm still trying to crack into that first novel to be published, but the manuscript that I've been rewriting it for a couple of years now, and I'm closing in I'm hoping within the next month or two, although I'm working full-time now as a writer-editor for a military contractor, so that has slowed the process down, but I'm hoping to, and that both of the novels I'm kind of working on right now, one is historical fiction, and that's kind of on the back burner until I finish this rewrite, but that's set in Erie County on Lake Erie. The historical fiction one is about an Irish immigrant homeless teen who gets employed as a rum runner for a family on Lake Erie running rum from Canada, and he gets himself into a rum run that has gone bad, and he's kind of fighting for his life there at the end. So that's the historical one. And then I'm also working on the contemporary one that I'm finishing up right now. And that is also set in northwestern Pennsylvania. I kind of wanted it on the Marcellus Shale And it's a coming of age of a high school senior whose college and career goals are kind of getting thwarted by a fracking infraction, alcoholic parent, and basically her whole world's imploding. So those are the two projects at the top of the list right now. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So both of those are set around Erie.
Mm-hmm.
Did Erie make its way into the vocabulary book at all?
That's a good question.
I know, because didn't you put some names of people and
might have put
little
some
Easter eggs?
might have put some names of some of the people watching right now. You may see yourself in a writing prompt. So yeah, I don't know if geography really played a part, but certainly people's names and I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania, so that's my hometown area. So that seems to be bubbling up, certainly in my fiction, and the people I grew up with are bubbling up in writing prompts. So
yeah, I was just curious. So what is a typical day? So I know you mentioned that now you're doing the military writing and you're working on both of your novels. You did the 17-day crunch with this book. What does a typical day look like for you as a writer? I feel like a lot of people don't know what, working from home and working on your own projects looks like.
Yeah, I've only been working full-time a month as the writer-editor. I was doing it part-time before that. And I think the working from home and staying focused on your projects, it requires a lot of friends and a lot of writing partners and accountability partners to keep your feet to the fire, because it's so easy to, I'll just go do this instead. And
right.
I'll get to that couple of hours, and the next thing you know, your whole day is gone. So I've been fortunate to have writing partners I meet with every week. I have friends I chat with on the phone who we talk about goals every week. And so really establishing those. Right now it's hard. The novel writing is getting squeezed in. I do a little bit on Tuesday with my writing partner, Jean, and I was doing a little bit on Thursdays with my writing partner, Amanda, and we do it virtually, of course. Amanda and I were outside until it got too cold to go in, and pretty socially distanced. Yeah. So a typical day for me right now is squeezing the novel writing in before or after work, or on the weekends. I do a bit on the weekends, and then my military writing is during the day.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing. Good for you for doing so many things at once.
It's proving to be a challenge.
Well, but I think you're right. When you're in a creative career, the people around you holding you accountable are so important. So It's great that you have a support network to keep you going.
Yes, absolutely.
So would you say, have you used kind of going to what prompts you're writing when you're writing for creatively, not working on a specific project? Have you ever used books similar to yours, or prompt books, prompt websites? Is that something that you've used before?
Yeah, I haven't necessarily used a book like this one, because this kind of feels a little unique. The vision that Adams Media had for this one is just, I've not seen anything like it. And there might be books like this out there, but no, definitely, I'm a big believer in prompt writing. I think when you get stuck on your own project, being able to just pick 5 words and work them into a paragraph or what have you is a great, just a great tool. a lot of books like Julia Cameron has like The Artist's Way and things like that.
Right.
Those aren't necessarily prompts, but they get you writing on stuff. So yeah, I would say to any writers on the call tonight that if you're stuck, there is nothing like a writing prompt and a timer to write about something completely different than you're writing on, just to open up the brain and open up the flow. And then usually you can get to from there, it circles around to your own projects and you can kind of get back into where you were, where you left off on.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's a good way to avoid writer's block.
Yeah. I mean, do you
Great
find
tool.
that with screenwriting that have you ever hit the wall and needed to go about it circular? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Whenever I feel like if I feel like I'm sitting down writing with a goal that's not productive, like I want to make this better, like it's not a good goal to sit down and write with. So if I feel like I'm sitting down to write with a goal that I feel like won't allow me to write the way I want to, I usually end up looking for prompts and then I'll just free write for the day. I feel like it's more productive than trying to force something out when you're not in the right space for it. But
yeah, I'm definitely a believer that it has to get out.
yeah.
And I think most creatives feel that way. Like it just has to, if you're writing music, whatever you're doing, it needs to come out in some form or the other. So you can play with it. It can be something playful or it can be something serious.
Right. It's funny. I feel like growing up, when your mom tells you what to do, you don't want to do it. And when you would tell me, when I'd come to you and be like, I'm having trouble writing, and you're like, you should just sit down and write. Just write. I was like, no, she can't tell me what to do, but you're right. It works. But so I guess I think we can open up to questions from the audience in a minute, but I did have one other question, and I guess it's a little more general, but just how long have you been writing, and what made you, like, I don't know, what has your writing career looked like? When did you decide this is what you wanted to do?
I took a very circuitous route to being a writer. I've been writing, trying to establish myself as a writer for probably 15 plus years at this point. I messed around with essay writing and picture book writing, which I was terrible at. And then I kind of found my home in YA fiction, and then still like the essay sort of writing was still fed by blogging and that sort of thing. It's funny. I was pre-med in undergrad, and I ultimately got my undergraduate degree in communication, but my absolute favorite class was a science writing class. And it never dawned on me that you could be a writer. I wish I had figured that out, 30 years ago. But so here I am. I've taken a very circuitous route, but absolutely love it. Wouldn't change it for anything at this point. So yeah,
that's awesome. I'm very happy for you.
Oh,
so if anyone has any questions, we're gonna have Cassie read them from the chat box. I don't know if there are any, but if you think of any.
We got two. The first one is from Sandy. What's your favorite word?
Oh man.
Maybe PG appropriate.
Yeah. Like favorite word ever or favorite word from the book? Wow. I don't know if I have a favorite word ever. There were a few really fun words from the book. Galoot. I mean, it sounds just like it is. It's an eccentric or foolish person. And of course, I grabbed that trivia from Yosemite Sam because I married a Looney Tunes fanatic. So I think I know every one of those cartoons frontwards and backwards. Yeah, I don't, might have to come back to that one. So.
This one's from Maxine. Is this book leveled in any way?
Leveled?
Yes.
Like reading level, I'm thinking?
I think so.
Hi, Maxine. My godmother. I think like for school-aged students, this would probably be geared more toward the high school level and possibly for SAT prep and that sort of thing. There certainly would be room for that here. I wouldn't see it at any lower than that. I'd probably peg it somewhere in the 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and then into adult, obviously. So
Great.
yeah.
That was the last one from the audience.
Oh, come on, everybody.
You have more, write them in the chat.
Yes, please. In the meantime, I'm wondering, so with the prompts, for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, is there a certain style of prompt? Like, are they geared towards, I don't know, like creative fiction writing, or are they kind of all over the place? Curious.
They're kind of a combination. Like some, I started the scene for you and wanted you to finish it using the word of the day kind of thing. So some of them had some pretty outlandish setting of the scene. Others were, use the word in a couple of sentences. Kate, the editor, she really wanted these to be where you actually use the word as opposed to giving an example of the word. So we tried to gear them to actually using the words in sentences. So that some of them I'd throw 5 words at you, including the word of the day. So it might be, red wine and glissando and whatever. And then you were supposed to write a little scenario with those words in it. So,
right.
So that's generally the flavor of it. Yeah.
It's very fun.
I think there might be like a couple acrostics and things like that just to shake it up a little bit. But yeah.
No, it's nice. It's diverse.
Yeah.
Different prompts.
Leslie would like to know, what kind of environment do you use for your writing? Do you have a quiet room?
Yes and no. Right now I do have my office back. It was taken over by Megan's college roommate who was sheltering in place with us in the spring. So then I didn't have my own space except the bedroom I was working in. Now, so we have a really small room that kind of serves as the office, but I am also, anyone who knows me really well, I'm an outdoor office person. So I have a tote bag that has everything that I need, and I will go to a picnic table, I'll go to an Adirondack chair, I'll work wherever I can and be outside as long as I can stand the temperature. And I can, but with heated lava seats and blankets and things like that, I can stay out well into November outside and then back out by March or April. So I do prefer, I love to be outside when I'm writing, but I do have an office. So back pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, I would meet writer friends at cafes, and again, having that person to hold you accountable to your writing time. So I miss that, and we're looking forward to getting back to that.
And her famous quote is, "I can write there." Every time we're anywhere, we're all just looking around, enjoying ourselves, and Mom is looking for different places that she could write. So
True, guilty. Every hotel lobby, every little cafe, every chair in a corner with a light. Like when my daughter was having surgery at the surgical place, I was like, oh, that little corner there, I could write there. She wasn't having surgery. So, guilty as charged.
And Jane Hoyt would like to know if there will be a day-to-day flip calendar to follow.
A day-to-day. Good idea. Next year. And I hope I have longer than 17 days to write it.
Amanda would like to know if there was a piece of trivia from the book that knocked your socks off.
Ooh. Knocked my socks off. That's a good question, Amanda. I'm not sure. Well, most of them were just funny things that made you scratch your head. And suffrage, which is the right to vote, so women's suffrage. And I remembered watching the TV show, The Man Show, with Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, and they were going around with a petition trying to get people to sign to do away with women's suffrage. And which of course the people who were signing the petition, including women, thought it was suffering, which is not. So that piece was, I wouldn't say it knocked my socks off, but that one was one, you got to get that one right. You can't be signing a petition for something that you don't have right. But yeah, and and then just one other word. I liked flotsam, because flotsam and jetsam, and there's like all these maritime terms for stuff that gets discarded off a ship. And I think actually both words are in the book. But so flotsam is either cargo that the shipmates are chucking off the ship as a last-ditch effort not to sink, or once they've sunk, it's floating in the ocean. So for any Poldark fans out there, that the stuff washing up on the shore and people are running down to the beach to claim it, that's flotsam. And just the difference of how maritime law defines what is floating and what is available to people to take. So those were interesting. So, thanks, Amanda.
This one's from Annie. Since writing this vocabulary book, do you find yourself examining your word choices more carefully and critically in your own novel writing?
Well, always. I've never really felt like I've had a great vocabulary. So it's very interesting that I was chosen to write this book. So yeah, I think the beautiful thing about language, any language, is just the depth and the variety of words, and we use the same ones over and over every day. So, and I'm going to have to go back through the book because, even the words I've used, the 365, I wouldn't be able to pull them all out of my brain right now and use them in a sentence. So I'm going to have fun just trying to add those permanently into my daily witty repartee and conversation. So, but yeah, I think for a lot of us word nerds, we like to be adding words, and it's exciting to learn something new that you didn't know the day before, kind of thing. So.
This one's from Mike. Would you agree to write another book in 17 days? They've asked again.
No. No, it was when Kate asked me how fast I could write it, I was like, oh boy, like I can't even imagine what she's thinking. And I was thinking I was going to have like 5 or 6 weeks. Like, I knew work for hire is tight. It's usually like 6 to 12 weeks, depending on what you're writing. So when she came back with the 17-day thing, and as I'm signing my name to the contract, I'm thinking, what have I done? But there was just, I just couldn't even look up. And whenever like I started panicking that I had bit off more than I could chew, which I did, I just had to just look down and focus and just keep checking the next word off the list and the next word off the list. But no, I joked with Kate, because Kate was like, yeah, I'm trying to see if maybe there's another project we could work on together. And I'm like, I'm going to need a longer runway. I can't do that again. So no, I don't think I would sign up for that again.
This is kind of a follow-up question to that from Stacy. If you had to approach a book at about the same amount of time span, hopefully a little longer, would you approach it the same, or would you do something different?
You know, I'd like to say I would do it differently, but you know, the first few days were slower. You know, just my progress was slow because I couldn't quite figure out where to find the information I needed, the research. And then once you kind of get in that rhythm, like you start realizing, okay, these are the top 5 sources I know I can go to, and start digging on any word or any topic. The research goes a little faster. You know, for a nonfiction book, I probably would trust my gut and do it similarly. A fiction, I have no idea I'd write a fiction book. That would be a totally different animal. And usually with a fiction work for hire, they kind of have a general plot for you and characters defined, and you just have to crank out the story that they've outlined for you. But needless to say, I think it would be very hard to write your own stuff in that short a period of time and hold yourself to that kind of a deadline, because clearly I haven't been able to do that on my own projects.
Awesome. My Alexa just went off.
Okay.
All these words are triggering her. This one's from Sally. As you look back, what was your favorite part of this project?
Wow, that's a good question. It's pretty intense. I'd say finishing it. No, you know, I liked that I did it. You know, I think if you had told me at the start of that, or 5 weeks before that, when we were kind of playing around with the idea of my doing a work for hire project, that I would write something in that short a period of time, no way can you get a project done in that short a period of time. And so it's a kind of a boost to you as a writer. And I really, you know, like, this is my first book. I've been writing for 15 years, but it's all that other writing that allowed me to write that quickly and that intensely and that focused. So I think probably the best thing that came out of it was knowing I could do it. The best thing of the process was, I mean, the only time I allowed for myself was my afternoon swim. So Sally, that was probably my favorite part of the day, was when I got my break to go swimming. But no, I did, you know, and my husband was doing a lot of the research with me. So we would have some laughs over the stuff that we had come up with, and things that would never go in a book that you research. You're like, huh, that's funny, but no. So there was a lot of fun. And if we had had a little more time, you know, the book would probably look a little different, would have different words in, and a different writer would have written a different book. So, yeah.
This one's from Ron. With the growth of text speak, do you think the use of correct grammar is disappearing?
That is a really good question. You know, I think we've been predicting the downfall of the English language for many years and probably centuries. You know, I'd like to think it's going to stay. I think people love good story. People love good dialogue. Yes, we have text speak. We don't use great grammar. We don't use punctuation or what have you. But that does not stop us from watching these big sweeping dramas on television or reading these wonderful books. I don't think that's going away. I don't think that's going away. Personally,
Awesome.
Sorry, Kathy.
We have one more question. Do you see yourself working with your junior assistant dean on future projects?
Absolutely. He's free labor. No, he was a lot of fun to work with. He was a good egg to help me out. You know, I was really drowning in some of the research, and we had a lot of fun together. So yes, I've often offered him the job of being my assistant to handle all my social media and, you know, my research. So if he wants that job, it's his.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was so great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cassie,
On the screen.
everybody at Unlikely Story. And thank you again to everybody who tuned in tonight. Just loved having all of you here. I wish it was more interactive, but thanks to everyone who's been on this journey with me.
Your next book will have to have you in store.
Would love that. They have a great space. Did I say you need to go?
Thank you. Buy the book. It's awesome. It's also really colorful and pretty and will look good on your bookshelf. When I was in college, I would have loved this book. I really needed it then. Perfect time to strengthen your vocabulary is during a pandemic. So click that green button below, and you're also going to get a signed book plate when you purchase it with us.
Great.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
Kathy. Bye.